Legislature back in session. Senator Talai, you still have the floor.
This is Mossy, Mr. Speaker. So that was the First Amendment. I have another amendment. This is on line 11, page 7. It's titled on the top AB 67 TMT L11, page 7. Is to add a new subsection C to 1203.1 to read C. The concessionaire, lessee, or other party to an agreement with the GIAA shall not sell, mortgage, sublease, assign, encumber, hypothecate, or otherwise transfer its interest in the property. Pretty much I'm trying to prevent a sublease without further negotiation.
Okay, so the amendment is AB 67 TMT L11 P7 submitted at 4:27 p.m. Is that the right?
Correct.
Okay. You want to go ahead and speak to it, or?
I think it's self-explanatory. Yeah, just trying to prevent a sublease. I think, yeah, yes, thank you.
Okay, on the amendment, are there any questions or any senator want to speak on the amendment? Senator Hahn, you want to speak? Who wants to speak on the amendment? Any senator want to speak on the amendment? No, it's AB 67 TMT L11 P7. Okay, it's for line 11, page 7. You got it? Any member wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Tamuning, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is, yeah, L1197. The concessionaire, lessee, another party to an agreement with the GIA shall not sell, mortgage, or lease. I think this is very proper, you know, and to ensure that, you know, we don't give away the store. And, you know, you would think that maybe this at least would be acceptable, considering, you know, they want to bypass procurement, that something like this is to protect the people's interests, the people's property. It's not the airport's property. It's entrusted into the airport, but it's the people's property. And I don't see why they would object to anything like this. It makes sense. I mean, we're not going to give away our property. So I stand in full support of this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment, any other member wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentleman from Tamuning, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this amendment is unnecessary. The GIAA is unable to dispose of its properties without FAA approval, Mr. Speaker. It is clearly mentioned, of course, it was clearly mentioned in the public hearing, as well as, of course, in the Bill 6738. And the FAA policy is to shun disposal of assets, especially because of the federal funds invested into the airports. It requires that the airports generally do not dispose of its assets without adequate justification. Additionally, the Guam International Airport Authority already requires the approval of any subleases to ensure it aligns with its airport layout plan, master plan that is, and that the financial and operational viability of a potential subleasee is upheld. For these reasons, again, I object and it's unnecessary at this point. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You're very welcome. Are there any other speakers, any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? If no others, Senator Talai, would you like to be able to close?
Yes, thank you. I disagree. I guess it is. It's again. They're saying it's already the airport already requires approval of airport board for subleases. But again, we are giving them a whole new authority to create.
Point of order,
Oh,
Mr.
no.
Speaker.
What's your point of order?
The time doesn't seem to be right. When you close on an amendment, don't you get 10 minutes to close?
Again, so the amendment would require that, well, it would prohibit any of the lessees that we are authorizing by this lease or the concessionaires from subleasing or assigning their lease. I think that's a good opportunity for the airport to, if the first party wants to get out of the lease, to renegotiate. And we have seen that to be fruitful in other areas of the government, and the proffer of the bill says that the airport already requires airport board approval of the sublease, but that's different than this. And whatever the airport currently requires is, by this bill, completely disregarded. We're now starting anew. They are now being given authority to make completely new rules. So we have no idea what those rules look like. We have no idea what their policies will be. So this is why I think it's important to put it into writing and allow and require them, like everyone else in the government, is prohibited from subleasing. You want to do a negotiation, you do that. You want to make a long-term lease, you do that. For that purpose, and that if you want to do a sublease, then that should be a whole other negotiation. Particularly in this case, Mr. Speaker, because of the ability of the airport to enter into 50-year-long leases. And I think if a party wants to get out of a lease, then it's a good time for the airport to reassess what are the new needs based on new technology, new airport standards, new everything in 25 years from now. Situs Masi.
On the amendment, there has been raised an objection on the amendment. Because there has been an objection, all those in favor of this amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Lai, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to yield my time to Senator Terlahi.
Situs Masi, Senator
Take a
Parkinson.
1-minute recess. Legislature's back. It's granted. As per standing rules, there's only one member. Okay, so you've yielded all your time. Thank you. Yes. No. Senator Lai, you can
Pardon me, did you say continue? Yes, Situs Masi.
on the main.
Situs Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague, Senator Parkinson, for yielding his time. I'd like to go now to Amendment line 1, page 8. This is AB 67 TMT L11 P7II. P7II.
Amendment is to line 1, page 8, AB 67 TMT L11 P7II.
Yes.
You can proceed.
Sitos Masi. All right. I had submitted a correction to this during the break, but to save them from reprinting it, if you allow me, I want to remove the first sentence from this amendment. So just disregard the first sentence. The rent appraisal fair market is already taken care of in the bill, so I just want to remove that first sentence, but add the rest of this language to the bill so that it will say the rent shall escalate at a minimum of 5-year intervals based at a minimum upon current appraisal of fair market value of the land being leased, but in no event shall rent be lower than the rent charged during the previous 5-year period. The rent to be charged on any request to exercise an option to renew an existing lease shall be based on the current appraisal of the fair market value of the land at the time the option to renew is exercised. This, again, are just minimal protections. They might decide to do this as a policy, they might not. And I think it's in the interest of the people of Guam to include this as a minimum standard that for these very, very long leases, because we have seen very long leases where there is no escalation. We are in one right now. And we are in several right now. And I think that that should be improved by requiring minimum 5-year intervals where they reassess the value. So that's what this amendment would do. Again, please disregard the first sentence to save paper. That would be my amendment, Mr. Speaker.
So the first sentence, can you read the sentence that you want deleted?
Disregard the first sentence, just remove it from the amendment, or else we have to reprint it. And the amendment is to add the words beginning with rent shall escalate.
The body understand? So it'll start, the amendment will actually start from the second sentence to delete the first sentence. Okay. On the amendment, are there any members wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentleman from Zonia, you can speak.
Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker. Buenas noches, Mariquita. Thank you for watching our session tonight. I rise in support of the amendment. I think it's prudent, given that this bill will allow the majority vote of the Board of Airport to enter into 50-year leases. And I'll be damned if the people of Guam are going to get stuck with a cheap rent for 50 years. So I think it's very reasonable that we escalate the rent at a minimum of 5-year intervals, so we don't sell our people's property short, and we ensure that we get the best deal possible, right, as much as we can, given that there's going to be little to no scrutiny from outside entities for, what this bill is attempting to do. So, Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker, rise in strong support of the amendment.
Thank you, sir. On the amendment, Gentlelady from Tumuning, ma'am, you can be recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I too stand in full support of this amendment. I believe some of the other comments, the comment that was made by not the former, but the author of this amendment mentioned a couple situations that we're in right now that doesn't allow it. And it was in the 35th or the 36th that we were able to correct that. Finally, the contract had ended. This had to do with fiber optic cables and to ensure that the Chamorro Land Trust got their bang for their buck, meaning that even though it was a long period of time, they had to come back every 5 years to review this on fair market value moving forward. And I mean, we've done it in the past, and there's never been any issue with this. I'm wondering what excuse they're going to use for something like this, because I tell you what, if this was your property, if this was yours, you're going to make sure that within 5 years you have the ability to readjust the rate based on fair market value. But sometimes when we're sitting in this hall, it's like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm doing somebody a favor, I'm just going to do this for them because, they're my friend. Well, shame on you. This is the people's land. You're supposed to be putting their interest first. Their interest first. And if this was your land, you would do the same thing. So if anyone says that it shouldn't be on here or object to this, then makes you wonder, whose interest are they after? Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker. Gosh.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment, any member wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentleman from Tumaning, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, got to reiterate again, I wish that some folks in this body will understand airport operations and the stringent requirements that they have to go through. Mr. Speaker, this amendment unintentionally aims to reduce the airport's ability to attract and retain aeronautical tenants and interested investors. It also is contrary to FAA policy that allows airports to lease below fair market value to aeronautical users, as I mentioned earlier before, fair market value for non-aeronautical use, and they can go under market value for aeronautical use. And to encourage development of aeronautical activities such as hangars, flight schools, fixed base operations, maintenance, repairs, and overall facilities, etc. This, of course, will be with the potential for negotiating the capital improvement or full-scale construction of buildings or structures that may involve tens of millions, if not more, in investment, where rent credits, reductions, or waivers could be provided for a time during construction, or if there was investment in excess of fair market value. I will note also that the FAA and this bill reiterates that the FAA already requires non-aeronautical leases to be at fair market value. And it's important that the FAA allows airports to have flexibility it needs to negotiate aeronautical use of its property, as hundreds of thousands to tens of millions of dollars may be needed by aeronautical tenants to either fix current airport facilities or to construct brand new facilities on airport properties. This amendment simply inhibits GIA's ability to have the flexibility it needs to negotiate with aeronautical tenants and investors, which again is within FAA guidelines and regulations. For these reasons, I object.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the amendment, good Senator from Tumuning, you recognize, sir?
Mr. Speaker. And for the reasons stated by the previous speaker, I also object to this amendment. You know, I have a feeling for the next series of amendments there will be comments thrown about, but the reasons for objections are being raised based on subject matter expert research and FAA regulations, which the author of this bill has been trying to enumerate throughout his discussion on this bill. If this was your property, you better be the subject matter expert of your own property. And if you're not, you better get subject matter experts that are going to advise you on leasing your property. You might want to consult an attorney. You might want to consult a realtor. You might want to consult a security title agency. I can give you all the information as a subject matter expert to allow you to use the highest and best of your property. So far with the amendments that have been proffered, I mean, good senator, good suggestions. I don't know that it comes from a subject matter expert. But I will say that the objections are well placed, and I will say, and I will comment, when comments are made and aspersions are cast about. I'm a simple man. I had a father who was a subject matter expert in real estate, so I learned highest and best use of property. I've passed that information along to my children and others who have consulted me and others on highest and best use of land. Got a lot of friends who are subject matter experts in leases, in property use, in business. So yeah, if it was yours, if you're intelligible, and you want to ensure that you get the most, and you want to ensure that you know the laws of Guam, then yeah, of course. If it was yours, do what's in the best of your interest. I don't think that anybody at the airport doesn't understand that the property and the agreements they're preparing to enter into doesn't belong to the people of Guam. But I believe, as they've testified and have reviewed this bill as proffered, know what they need to allow the people of Guam to realize the highest and best use of the airport assets. And as my good friend, the author of this bill, said time and time again, yeah, there are some trust factors here which are fine. And I'll go to what he said once again, describing one of our great leaders of our party, Trust But Verify. The verify is here. Oversight. Board member confirmation. Maybe some people in this hall don't trust themselves. For that reason, Mr. Speaker, with proper analysis, I also object to this amendment.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, Gentlelady from Baragata, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this amendment, and I just an analogy is what we did to improve the leases for our submersed lands, where we did have this escalator clause. And I think this is just good practice overall to ensure that we are keeping up with the times as far as the value, fair market value. The one thing too, that if you look at the FAA regulations, it states that fair market value is not the standard for aeronautical rentals. And so I think this amendment is important because to cover not just the non-aeronautical uses, but as well as the aeronautical uses. So I rise in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, any senator wishing to speak? Senator Salai, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to amend this to put the word non-aeronautical in the beginning. Non-aeronautical rent shall escalate. I'd like to make that amendment to the amendment.
On the amendment to the amendment is to insert the word aeronautical, non-aeronautical? Non-aeronautical? So it'll read non-aeronautical rent.
Yes.
Okay? On the amendment to the amendment is to insert the word non-aeronautical rent. Non-aeronautical in front of rent. Any discussion? Any objection? Is there an objection to it? No objection, so ordered. Go ahead.
Ms. Mossy, on the overall amendment, again, I think it's important, despite the ability of the airport to negotiate, and I respect that, and I respect that these board members are going to try to make the best deal for the people of Guam that they can. But isn't that what all the boards have done? And isn't that, it's just that 25 years from now and 40 years from now, as long as these leases can go 50 years from now, things are going to change drastically. And we should be able to plan for the long run. And in the absence of the guidelines that the airport wants to adopt for these leases, I think this is a minimum standard that we can put down. And if they want to depart from this, they want to demand higher escalation rates going forward or no escalation rates going forward, then there's nothing to prevent them from coming to the legislature for those special leases where they can't negotiate a minimum escalation rate every 5 years. It's really a minimal standard. There's nothing to prevent them right now. And again, I'm here scrambling, trying to put in some little bits of guidelines because there are none. They're not required to follow any law. They're required to, we're waiving by this bill that their compliance with all laws. So I just think this is a very minimal requirement. It's for the long term, and it's in the absence of any guidelines from the airport in front of us that we are approving. It's a minimal standard. And again, if they want to depart from it, they can depart from that. That should be an exceptional case. I don't think that's going to happen every single day for them. They can do what every other agency does. When the Guam Power Authority wanted to depart from the procurement law, they came down here and spelled it out exactly which provisions were inhibiting them for this certain types of contract. And I think that's very fair. It should be transparent like that for the people of Guam. If in a certain aeronautical use or non-aeronautical use, they need to depart from these types of standards, they could spell that out for us. I'm sure the FAA does not mind that they can spell that out for the people of Guam. And if we're going to just, again, all our agencies abide by federal regulations. They don't come in here and tell us, hands off, because we're following federal regulations. You can't touch us. You can't control the land that you gave us. We're not even controlling it. The bill gives them carte blanche authority. It waives them from following any other provision of law, including ethics laws, all those protections that we have in our procurement law against conflicts of interest. So I just think I don't understand the objection to minimal standards in the absence of any other guidelines that they are putting in front of us or in front of the people of Guam. And I think we have seen leases, despite what the board members thought at the time was a great deal. It looks in retrospect like a very bad deal for the people of Guam. And I say, why not open it up, make it more transparent? That's what we do with bills. We make them better by opening them up, letting all the people of Guam see what we're trying to do in here so that we can make it better. I don't think anybody in any board thinks they are I don't know, that they should act on behalf of all the people of Guam in all matters. That's the way our system is. We have checks and balances everywhere. That's That's regular. Trying to give a superpower, non-transparent system is very unusual. So I again urge my colleagues, this is a minimal standard for the long term. If they want to depart from this, there's nothing to prevent them from coming in here and being specific for which purposes they want to depart from this. And again, it's for non-aeronautical rent shall escalate for these minimal values, minimal guidelines. It's Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the amendment as amended, there has been an objection. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Tzalai, you still have the floor.
It's Masi, Mr. Speaker. Did they pass out a new one? All right, I'd like to do the amendment that's just been recently passed out. It's AB 67 TMT L5-9 P5 III, capital III. So it's capital III, line 5, page 5.
So the amendment we're going to be entertaining is AB 67 TMT L5-9 P5 capital I, capital I, capital I.
Correct.
And this is for line 5 through 9, page 5.
Yeah, and just to make sure you can see what I'm doing here, so I'm striking out the number 60114, the statute 60114, and below that, I'm writing in the words except 60112B and 60114. Those are supposed to be double underlined. Can you see the double underline?
I can see it.
Okay, so this amendment, Mr. Speaker, this is, this provision of the bill says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, including these sections of law, any agreement between the authority and any other party for airport facilities, airport purposes, shall conform to the following. So they make them conform to these laws below and seem to be waiving all other laws. So I'm trying by this amendment to put back in the provisions that they must comply to 60114. They're not exempt from 60114 or 60112B. 60114 says, A, that they can, that the government of Guam is authorized to lease property for 50 years for commercial purposes. That's A. So there's no need for them to be exempt from A. B, no portion of the leased land shall be subleased without the written consent of the governor, approved as to form by the Attorney General, and approved by the legislature as provided in 60112 of this article, but they're exempt from 60112. So I'm not requiring them approval of the legislature, but I am trying by this amendment to make sure that they also have to comply with written consent of the governor, approved as to form by the Attorney General in subsection B. And subsection C of 60114 says, all leases shall be executed by the governor, attested by the lieutenant governor, approved as to form by the Attorney General. That's a minimum requirement, I would think. I don't understand the board's objection to that, but this is a current requirement for all of the government. It's even the subject of a lawsuit, I think, right now. So I think that that should still be required. Subsection D is, a copy of every executed lease shall be filed with the Department of Administration. Surely there's no objection to that. Subsection E, the lease shall be approved by the legislature as provided in 60112, but again, in an earlier provision, they are exempt from 60112, so that will not apply. But I do want these other protections, such as governor's signature on subleases AG signatures on the leases, governor's signatures on the leases. I think that's, again, a minimal standard that we have required throughout the government for decades. And I don't see why we're going to depart from that right now. And if these are such great deals, the governors are going to be so happy to sign these leases. So again, just puts one more set of eyes to be aware of what we are signing the people of Guam into. So that's the amendment. At 60112B, so on the accept 60112B, 60112B is agency shall not purchase or enter into a lease, license, or sublease of property owned by the federal government for a term in excess of 5 years without the prior approval of the legislature. So I would like that to apply again. I don't think they should be exempt from that. They've given no real basis why they need to be exempt from that. And so I hope my colleagues will find these reasonable. To just restore that they must comply with 60112B and 60114. That's the amendment.
Let's take a recess. Senator Lai, your amendment is contradictory because you say including without limitation 60112, but then you say except 60112B. But you already say 6112 in its entirety. I think you have to be clear about that because you say without limitation the entire 60112. Okay. I just read this. Okay, we're back from recess. On the amendment. Gentlelady from Barragata, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I think this amendment is aligned with the current amended bill because this amendment actually is followed by numerical subsections, right? So if you were to read the entirety of it, so it states that, I'll just read it again. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, including without limitation, 5 GCA, Chapter 5, Section 5127, Chapter 9, 21 GCA, 60112, 60115, except 60112B and 60114, any agreement between the authority and any other party for use of airport facilities and properties for airport purposes and or visitor-related activities shall conform to the following. So the following, if you look at number 2, it does say for a term up to 50 years. So they are, and what 60114 also states is a term of up to 50 years. So what I'm saying, it is aligned with what already in the bill as far as 60114 goes. 60112B, that's the, I believe that was, yeah, that's what's being proposed. That's new. So I think it's aligned with whatever's there. And I do support that. I support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. On the amendment, any other senator wishing to speak on the amendment? No other senator. Senator Lai, you can close.
All right, Sidus Masi, again, I hope there's no objection to restoring the governor's authority, the AG's authority to review the leases, approve them as to form. He is going to be, that is his job. And I think that's an extra protection for the people of Guam. And when we're talking about leases at this length, I think this is, again, such a minimal thing. that he's going to approve as to form. And the leases will be filed at the Department of Administration's website so all the people can see them. I see no problem with that. I hope no one else does. So that's the amendment, Mr. Chair. Again, we are waiving all laws of Guam for the airport. We are asking them to comply with this, that they get the governor's signature and the AG's signature on 50-year leases, multi-million dollars, for property that we've entrusted to this airport. Masi.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, there has been an objection to the amendment. Therefore, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Talai, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All right, I'm now on Amendment P6, 4:26 p.m. P6, line 6, page 6. All right, so this is an amendment that I tried earlier in subsection 1 for concessions for 15-year leases. I tried to make that comply to the procurement law. This is subsection 2. This is for not the concessions, but for other airport contracts. For the use of airport facilities and properties shall be authorized for a term of up to 50 years, subject to FAA, to include rates charged for non-aeronautical uses at fair market value pursuant to FAA requirements. I'm trying to include in there, and pursuant to Guam Procurement Law, 5 GCA Chapter 5. For leasing of this property up to 15 years, I'm suggesting they should comply with the Guam Procurement Law and the policies and procedures adopted from time to time by the airport's board of directors. Their only limitation is that their policies cannot authorize gambling. But again, I think we've got protections in the procurement law. They spell out how how parties, if they think they've been treated unfairly, can challenge, how those decisions are going to be made. They talk about who's going to be given notice. This is like years worth of protections that have been built into the procurement system that they may or they may not adopt in their guidelines. Again, they are not showing us the guidelines that they want to adopt. They just want us to close our eyes and say, go ahead, adopt whatever you want. I've never seen that done in the entire history of Guam. I just don't understand it. At the very least, show us the guidelines that you want to adopt. We can even put them into the law and say, these are the guidelines, and any changes that do not exceed whatever, you can make on your own. Everything else should be approved by the people of Guam. But if we're not going to do that, then I would suggest that we at least hold them to the procurement law like we have held every other agency of Guam, despite their special purposes, their special industries. And if they need to go way beyond that, there's no reason they can't do that in a very transparent way and bring it here. Bring it in front of us, just like this bill was able to get through, that will get through. Good deals get through. There's no reason not to, especially if they're willing to answer the questions and just show what the deals are going to be. And this procurement law protects single source vendors, it protects competitors. It really protects competition and gives value for the people. Another thing that's lacking from this subsection 2 is in subsection 1, they said the concessionaires, they must be competitive solicitations, but here, even for non-aeronautical uses, they don't have to be. This is a huge departure in policy, but So that's why I'm saying they apply to the procurement law. If there are exceptions, the procurement law also has exceptions for exceptional contracts. So that's my amendment on this one, is to add those words, Guam procurement law, and let them comply to that.
Yeah. On the amendment, AB 67 TMT L6-15 P6 for page 6, line 6 to 15. Gentlelady from Tamuning, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand in full support for the reasons that I stated earlier when we tried to put the procurement law into one of the amendments. You know, it's ironic because procurement law does not always only provide fair bidding, but also procurement allows for the agency to buy local. There's a requirement in procurement law that you have to go for local. And if we don't have this in, then we're just messing with all our businesses that sacrifice their hard-earned time and money in opening businesses to grow our economy here on Guam, for them to be left out. So if we don't do this, then we're telling our local businesses, too bad, you know, we'll go off island, it's much cheaper, and we'll fly it in because, you know, we're the airport, we get discounts. What are we saying to our local businesses after everything we're doing to try and keep their businesses alive on this island? That's why we have procurement. That's why it was created, to protect our businesses on this island. But nobody cares because all they want to do is just open a blank check to an agency who's been in litigation for how long? If you Google it, those who are watching at home, Google it, DFS versus Lotte, and find out what happened. And the first thing it'll tell you is that board members were accused of taking bribes. That's what it'll tell you. And we're supposed to trust board members? We can trust, again, but we need to put mechanisms in place to ensure things like this doesn't happen, because mistakes cost more than being proactive. And we're not in a position right now to throw money away. So not having procurement, you're saying to the business owners on this island, too bad. We're going to allow the airport to go and purchase from off island. It's cheaper. Then you're going to see more businesses closing down. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the amendment, are there any other senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Good lady from Barrelata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the sponsor of the bill.
For the sponsor of the bill?
Yes.
What is your question?
So the question is, what are the applicable Federal Aviation Administration requirements for the Guam Antonio B. Wampat Airport?
Sir, would you yield to the question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so in this amendment, it does include the language of applicable Federal Aviation Administration requirements. And I'm wondering if the sponsor of the bill can enlighten us on that.
Yeah, I mean, all procurement measures have to adhere to all FAA requirements. It depends on what requirement you're talking about. It depends on what particular question you're asking in regards to requirements.
Okay, so I guess the question is that has the airport been grandfathered in for any requirements that are federal?
Has it ever been grandfathered in?
Yes. So are they grandfathered from having to abide by federal regulations?
No, they have to adhere strictly to, I mean, on a monthly basis, they're scrutinized. They receive a lot of federal grants, and if they're not on Zoom on a monthly basis, they're out here on a monthly basis to scrutinize again all their expenditures, whether it's aeronautical or non-aeronautical activities that happen in the airport, for them to be able to keep their certification and their grants going. So nothing is out of again FAA standard regulations for aeronautical and non-aeronautical uses of the properties at airport facilities.
Okay. I do request further, maybe legal help with that one, because I did find in my research.
Sorry. The question to me.
Okay, point of information.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did find in my research that they are grandfathered from federal requirements. And so I would like clarity on that as far as what exactly, so it states this very broad term, applicable federal aviation administration requirements. So if they're grandfathered, then maybe some of these requirements that we believe them to be, I guess, applicable are not. And so that's really the heart of the matter, is what exactly applies if they are grandfathered, as what I've come up in my research. And so again, this amendment really puts in those safeguards. I think safeguards are critical when it comes to revenues, when it comes to expenditures, when it comes to the resources and the holdings that belong to the people of Guam. And I think that there's something not transparent in this bill that I'm willing to work with the sponsor to make this a better bill. I want the airport to succeed. I know the urgency in how they need to produce revenues, but this feeling of dire urgency can also cloud our decision-making process to provide the best decisions. And so my concern is that without having any of these safeguards, that there really isn't nothing, there's nothing there to protect us, because liability, it does say in the bill they have to abide by bond covenants. But then they're also saying that they're going to abide by applicable federal aviation administration requirements, which may not be there. So I need more clarity and comfort in ensuring that this bill is really a good bill for our people. And so thank you.
On the amendment. On the amendment. Gentleman from Zonia, you recognize.
Sido Swasia, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to rise in support of this amendment, which is, it's pretty simple. All we're trying to do is put some safeguards in here, put the procurement law in here, and require that if the board of directors of the airport, whether it's with 3 votes, 4 votes, or whatever, are going to obligate the airport to a 50-year lease, that we at least run it through the procurement law. I think that's pretty reasonable. And, based on what was said earlier, it kind of sounds like they already have, it's almost like reverse engineering. They already have the entity, seems like, that they want to put in this 50-year lease. And so that's why we're doing this bill with no safeguards, because as was said, they've already begun communicating with people. They're advertising the island of Guam, saying, Maila, we got a good deal. Hopefully the people will make out a good deal too. But the procurement law, it's very stringent. There's the ethical components in there that prevent conflicts of interest. I'm not sure if the FAA is going to, scrutinize the lease if it's pari-pari system or what. I don't think so. So I think it's very reasonable to put our procurement law in there. And it's been my understanding that if you're having issues with the procurement law, then probably you're not doing it right. And so I think this is just a very simple safeguard. I mean, kind of like a minimum standard, you know, but it appears that we don't want any standards with this bill. We just want to pass it as is, give the airport exactly what they say they want, which, you know, I guess is fine for some members, but, you know, as previous speakers have said, we're a body of checks and balances, and shouldn't be about just rubber stamping whoever's bill comes through here for, like I said, this is the new procurement now. You just bring your bill to the senators, you find a senator that's willing, and they're gonna ram this thing through with no scrutiny. And so I don't even think we're adding scrutiny, we're just saying, hey, comply with the procurement law. So, Sidos Masi, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak in support of the amendment.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, any members wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentleman from Tumuni, you're recognized.
Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. I just need to reiterate, again, I wish that some of my colleagues here would understand airport operations, because it's not like any other business. We compare it to, again, Chamorro Land Trust. They don't have the scrutiny of the FAA. They don't have those rigid requirements as well. Mr. Speaker, again, this amendment attempts to add words to the Guam Procurement Law, 5 GCA, Chapter 5, to the reenacted section of 1203.12. The reason this amendment will not work is because Guam Procurement Law 5 GCA Chapter 5 governs the spending of government funds. This bill addresses the GIA's ability to solicit, select, and award revenue-generating concessions agreements. This is extensively was extensively addressed in the public hearing, Mr. Speaker. These are just now coming up. These questions are just now coming up, but they were extensively addressed at the public hearing. And the industry experts were there to answer all those questions as well. The airport has a lot of leases, Mr. Speaker, from small kiosks to big property leases. It's worked up till now. There was a statement earlier that said there was litigation. Yeah, there was litigation. That was settled. It was settled. And again, when you say that you can't trust board members, I just said earlier, the airport will have, again, an oversight hearing next month. I hope that you will turn out then and ask the questions and scrutinize the board members at that time as well. And ask the questions that you're asking now or putting forth now when the industry experts will be there. And so when you keep reiterating, yeah, this is, you know, previous speaker had just said, yeah, because instead they're already selling it. Of course, we are trying to sell what's happening here in Guam. Of course, we are trying to entice businesses to come to Guam rather than going to our competitors. They're looking at Guam and saying, you don't have this. No, we don't have that flexibility. You don't have it. We're saying, hey, there's an opportunity. Can you give us a chance? Maybe you can do business. Maybe. If this bill passes, maybe you can do business. But please take a look at us. How many of us have sat through pre-sales of homes or pre-sales of condominiums? They advertise, hey, come and do this. Come and look at our facility. Why do you think our governor and her team went on a trade mission? They're trying to generate business for our island. And if we work in partnership, we could probably attain that a little faster, Mr. Speaker. The state of our economy is really grim. We're going to be into this budget session here shortly. And it's going to be a tough thing if we don't start turning things around. But when we have an opportunity, when opportunities are on our doorsteps, now we're saying it's all corrupt. It's all sweetheart deals because it's pre-selling it already. People are interested. We're trying to get them interested. Yes, we are. We're trying to get them interested in our island, to invest in our island. That's what we're trying to do. Because all our competitors have the edge over us. Most everybody in Asia has recovered from COVID. We have not. And so just ask again, take some time. Understand airport operations. Understand how they operate. Understand the different leases they have. Understand what they have to go through. Understand what FAA regulations are. Because if you can point out one corrupt person or two corrupt people at the airport, they're here right now. Point them out. So again, Mr. Speaker, we have an opportunity at our doorstep. And people said, we're trying to fix it. Well, damn it, I've only been here 2 terms. Most of you have been here longer. Have you fixed it? You have not fixed it. I'm attempting to do that, Mr. Speaker. But if this body wants to be non-competitive with our competition around here, so be it. So be it. And just remember, you had that opportunity in your doorstep. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Gentleman from Tumuning, you recognize.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker. And I associate with myself with the statements of the retiring speaker. It's clear from the review to insert this here is the use of government funds versus solicitation, which the airport's going out to do for concessionaires. You know, it's interesting when we talk about the 10-year fight between Lotte and duty-free shoppers. You know, if you research this competition, they have some of the highest paid lawyers on both sides, because that is one of the most massive competitions internationally, is duty-free shoppers within airports. You go to the Japan airport, you walk through there, you see both of them on every corner in Tokyo. And you know, the airport, that attorney and the attorney to fight that was all paid for by the vendor. They're used to that. So you can use that example if you want to. Yes, that was procured 10 years ago. And it stayed in litigation and it was settled. There was a talk about local businesses. Walk around the airport. Most of those are franchises and other local businesses that are going to be vying for these concessions. You know, it's interesting, Mr. Speaker, because I've heard criticism after criticism, and people in former bodies of legislature have introduced legislation. How can we get more businesses into the airport? And you walk the hundreds of thousands of feet on the gates that they've put in there, the international airport that we have that is one of the crown jewels of this island. Yet they still struggle, especially after the pandemic, to put in local businesses and concessionaires in there. This is not giving away the store to outside businesses to come in and capitalize. There's thousands and thousands of square feet. I just went on a recent trip and, got my steps in. My watch was happy because my gate is at the end. And I sat down with my wife and we looked at the doors and doors and doors of shops that used to be open and coffee shop, and the one who sell mango over here and local chocolates that some of our southern residents have licenses for to sell Guam chocolate. Lo mahuhudsam. Businessita, business mommy, and now. Afa moon. Lo, ahit sa mo sa puri tau-tausan hidzong esti siya. Babarias. Ay, di familak ko. Ekwa, Speaker Lo. Para guau na liesti. Siga ma. Siga ma no halum isti na palabras dan amendment siya. Lo subject matter expert man liesti talo dan niya hi. Ti parewa asti. Ti parewa ng puusa sa lapi sa otro na klase. Po solicit a contract. Anyways, Mr. Speaker, like I said, I agree with the review of the subject matter experts. I agree with the fact that the concessions are open to our local companies to take a stab at. And I think that our airport, in the shops that I patronized and walked through over the years prior to the pandemic, I can identify those shops as being shops that exist in Guam. Restaurants, burger places. The beer that I like to buy, when I have one before I get on the plane, bula siya ginahulo. Local business. So for that reason, I also object to this amendment. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, any other senator wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Lai, you can close.
That's correct. There are local businesses in the airport right now, and that's because of the laws that mandated that they consider local businesses. It could be because in the future they will have policies that also say they must consider local businesses, but right now we don't see that. We have no idea what their policies or guidelines are going to say. And I'm pretty sure in the litigation, the whole point of it was they were supposed to follow the procurement law. The procurement law applied. And so if it is applicable in the situation, it should be applied. And the protections of it should be applied. And the fairness of it should be applied. That was the whole point in the decisions I read, was talking about the procurement law and whether they followed it or they did not. So, again, they wanted us to extend the length of their leases. That's done. They've got 15 years for sure, longer if they want, and they want to show how long and for what purpose. They got that. But that's not enough. All of a sudden, they want to waive all the laws of Guam, including all the protections of the procurement law. And that we're supposed to turn around and say, go for it, waive all the laws to bring in that business. I don't think that's necessary. And even they say they're going to make their own rules and guidelines, so let's see them. And if we're not going to see them, then why isn't it perfectly reasonable that in the absence, they follow the procurement law? And if they've got something better, they can come to us and tell us this is better for airport purposes. Can we follow these laws? As opposed to, no one knows what they're going to come up with, except maybe some of those who have the special knowledge in here that don't want to share it. And I was at the hearing, and that was not the issue. I asked them, if you've been working for years on this, so where are your guidelines? Where are the lands you want to set aside for certain types of industry? How long do you want those leases to be? Why aren't you coming in here with those types of plans? Again, I trust that they can make a good deal, but I just don't see why we have to waive all the laws of Guam for them to get a good deal. Why can't we keep protections for competitors? Why can't we keep protections for protests? Why can't we require that they follow certain guidelines? Why not? And if they're exempt, why should anyone in the government of Guam be bound to this procurement law? I would even be all right if they came in with deals and said, this is the deal. This is the deal with we want to do. We want to set aside this land for these purposes. We know this is the best deal that, whatever. At least certain parameters, but that's not what they want. They got what they wanted in the extended leases, and now they want us to waive all laws. So I'm asking my colleagues again. They complied with the procurement law for the concessions in the past. There's no reason we can't say the procurement law applies. Now, if by the terms of the law it's not applicable, then it's not applicable. But if it is, then they should comply with it. And in the past, the courts found that it was. So, again, it's just to add the words procurement law, that they're going to follow federal law and they're going to follow local law as well. That's the amendment. Thank you to my colleagues.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment, there has been an objection. Therefore, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails.
Cesar Masi. The next amendment is L11P6, line 11, page 6. This is because we did not accept the amendment that they should comply with the procurement law. I would like to add in here that they should at least be, their policies and procedures should require competitive solicitation, selection, and award of contracts. They use this language in part 1 for the...
Can you please hang? What is your amendment?
Line 11, page 6.
you have that amendment? AB 67 TMT L11 P6 at 5:25 p.m. You can proceed. You can proceed.
All right, so I was saying, I want to, because we did not require them in the last amendment to abide by the procurement laws of Guam or any laws of Guam, I would like at the very least that they be required to use competitive solicitation, selection, and award of contracts. They put this language in Part 1, and so my amendment is to put this same language in Part 2. That's one of the goals of the procurement law, is to make it competitive, make it fair.
Okay. On the amendment, it's AB 67 TMT L11 P6 at 5:25 p.m. It's found line 11, page 6. And it's to amend section 1203.1A2 of the bill. Okay. Any senator would like to speak on the amendment? Any senator would like to speak on the amendment? Good senator from, gentleman from Tumuni, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, again, as stated, the public hearing, we had Bill 6738, again, FAA requires that airports allow for aeronautical users to be authorized to use airport property as a matter of priority. Airports are made for aeronautical users. If airport property is available, airports are obligated to allow use for aeronautical use, allowing solicitations for aeronautical use is generally contrary to, of course, FAA policies, especially when adequate property is available. Additionally, FAA requires the highest and best use of airport property to ensure compliance with FAA grant assurances that comply with self-sustaining mandates and maintain operational flexibilities. Again, for these reasons, I object to this amendment, Mr. Speaker. And again, to answer the previous question in regards to the grandfathered, I think I misunderstood what you had said earlier, Senator Sabina Paris, because that relate, let me see, where is that at? That relates to the 4% fuel tax. That was, I think, 2004 to 2018. That was the grandfather you were relating to. I thought you were talking about property grandfathered uses of that, so my mistake. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the amendment, are there any senators wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Tlai, you can close.
Thank you. Again, the language that they are applicable, subject to applicable FAA requirements is still in there for aeronautical and non-aeronautical uses. And I'm saying that they shall be charged for non-aeronautical uses at fair market value pursuant to FAA requirements and subject to procedures for the competitive solicitation, selection, and award of contracts for those uses. And I think that's fair, and I think they can comply with all of these things at the same time. There's no reason not to. Again, this is protection of the people of Guam. While we are being promised we're going to get great deals, we're being promised that waiving all laws is going to get us what's going to save Guam. I mean, I am all for let's do what that place was intended to do. Let's use those properties as intended. You wanted long-term leases, wouldn't give us any specifics. Well, now you've got the ability for some long-term leases. But now we want to waive all procurement laws, and again, this is just simple procurement stuff. It's like one of the goals of our procurement is we're going to make it competitive. We're not, that's really basic. So, you know, maybe people think it's not a big deal. Just let them make the best deal, and whether it's, you know, good enough or whatever, it's fair enough. That doesn't matter. We're desperate, and we just need to let them do whatever they want to do. I don't know, but I just think it's short-sighted, because we have to be the body that can see for the long term, that can see that if we all are going to agree that the deal is good, then it's probably good. But if there's going to be questions about it, then maybe there's something to that. That's worked in the past. And we've seen when it doesn't work, when there is no scrutiny, we've seen what happens, and it's unfortunate. And I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that could happen. It's got nothing to do with who do we trust. I'm saying laws are built for a reason. They're built for fairness. They're built for value. They're built for protection of competitors, protection of fair play, protection so there's no conflict. It's good to make a deal now if this law passes. These people in power can make deals right now to bind us for 50 years. And it's going to look great for a certain period of time. But we don't know what happens in the future. So it's a risk. And this is the risk that we should be taking together, and we should have consensus on. It's a risk that all the people of Guam are going to be bound to. Don't forget that they don't get that direct benefit. They're going to be getting indirect benefits from the deals that the airport can make. But the money that they receive from these leases is not going back to the people. It's going to the airport. There's nothing in this bill that even mandates customs can have a facility, and they're going to tell us, oh, that's against the FAA as well. Well, we're giving them some huge authority here without even a concession that customs can rent free. So I just ask my colleagues to support this amendment. It's very minimal, competitive solicitation.
Okay, on the amendment. On the amendment, there was an objection. So all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Senator Talai, you still have time.
I believe I've exhausted all my amendments. But again, we want the airport to succeed in this business. We want, of course, the people of Guam have sacrificed a lot for all of this. I think the legislature has been responsive when the airport wants to go out for bonds, when they want to do whatever they want to do, when they needed help in the concessions, everything. I just question this push for a complete protection from transparency for the airport. a complete exemption from all laws of Guam in making these multi-million-dollar deals, a complete exemption from even conflict of interest statutes, on the last page of the bill, it says, agreements between the authority, airport authority, and any airline offering service shall charge the airline rates sufficient to cover the operating expenses of the air terminal and debt service. So kind of they bind themselves to this. Maybe this is also an FAA requirement. But this requirement, interestingly, is not in the other section. In other words, the rates or the charges and what they're used for is complete discretion of the airport. And we've given that, the legislatures before us gave them that discretion. I'm fine with that. But I don't understand, with all that discretion, to use the money that they make at the airport in the ways that they see best, salaries, whatever, hopefully, facilities. They're talking about rental credits or waiving rent. I just think this is a big investment by the people of Guam. We don't need to waive every single law to get economy on Guam, to get business investments. And I think going down that road and just saying we have to because we have to trust them, and we have to because they should be this one entity should be exempt. It doesn't logically to me make sense why any other entity on Guam should have to be bound by a procurement law, should have to run their contracts through the Attorney General of Guam, should have to abide by conflict of interest statutes, should abide by preferences for locals. Anything. Should have a place to go to OPA for protests. And they've got smart people there. So they might make great policies, but that's not what we have before us. We have before us a law that says they can make whatever policy they want. And that policy, I don't believe is ever a good policy. If it's a great guideline that they want to make, it should be transparent. It should be that we can see it, and we can all join in and say, that's great. That's how our airport should be run. So I appreciate the efforts to move projects, get these leases done, but I don't believe that they were prohibited from doing that. I do not believe that we need to waive all the laws of Guam just to get leases up there at the airport. Mr. Speaker. And thank you to my colleagues for waiving their time, for speaking on my amendments, and for allowing me to make these remarks.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, Gentlelady from Vergara, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, I share many of the concerns of the retiring speaker, especially with language in the bill that says, notwithstanding any other provision of law, including without any limitations, 5 GCA Chapter 5, which is the procurement law, and then Section 5127. Chapter 9 is the administrative adjudication law, and then 21 GCA 60112, 114, and 115. And so those are big gaping holes, and I stated that at the public hearing. And it raises alarms for me because without those particular laws, it really opens up the door to potential misuse. And I know that, you know, I did speak with the gentleman outside from the airport, and having that conversation was good. But when we put something in law, it lasts. I know they have actually draft regulations, but they don't want to, they feel that this law has to pass before they share it with us. I think that's an important component for us to really feel comfortable about passing this bill. That's one of the elements that we are asking for, but we can't see that. But again, you know, without that interaction, should this pass, this stays indefinitely until it gets amended or repealed, right? So to me, these were alarms. And what does this do? Basically, it exempts the airport from procurement law in this particular section. It exempts them from promulgating regulations, which I know has been a bane for a lot of agencies. But you know, by my calculations, if you put your foot to the metal, you can get it done in 3 months. That's my calculations. But then the biggest problem here, I think, is the land. These sections that exempt them from selling land. And that's what this 60112 21 GCA does. It basically states that, well, it says that it prohibits the selling of land, leasing, subleasing, exchange, or otherwise transferred without the prior approval of a legislature and by duly enacted legislation, which specifically authorizes a sale, lease, exchange, or transfer, and includes real property description of the government-owned real property with particularity and Department of Land Management recorded maps. So, you know, that is our gold. That's our treasure here on this island, is our land. We can't produce land. This is the land that we have. And to be able to give any agency this authority to sell land without approval by the body that's been elected by the people of Guam is a huge concern for me. I don't think that we in this house should have that authority to sell, to be able to allow an agency to sell land, to give away land. I mean, the FAA regulations say that they have the authority to sell it. That's what the applicable federal regulations say. But we as a people of this island, we are ready to give it away, to allow the sale of it. We're creating an injustice upon injustice. We should know better. I think this bill could have been written better, and it would have satisfied everybody's concerns. To incorporate economic development, but protect the resources of our people and protect the public trust. Those two are not non-exclusive. We can do both together, and this is what I keep saying. And some of the language in this bill is kind of curious, because it seems to me that it's not putting the people first. I mean, in addition to what I just stated, where we're giving exemptions. The language of fiscal assessment and policies and procedures. So it said fiscal assessment shall directly address at a minimum the purpose and need for, it doesn't say who, the financial impact upon those persons and entities. So who are those persons and entities? Are we talking about the entity that we're trying to attract? Are we talking about the entities that live here, that are rooted here on this island? And directly affected, it says, and directly affected by. So are we putting the concerns of a foreign corporation above the people of Guam? I mean, that's the language that's here. And so it raises some questions as to who is this bill for? Without having seen concrete regulations, without having these discussions. Already the bill is defective. And when you created a bill that is lacking, you almost know what to expect. Unfortunately, hopefully not. But I say this bill can be written better. And I do see the improvement. The amended bill is improved, greatly improved upon the introduced bill. But I think this bill can be written better, or improved upon even more. I think what is needed and what's asked for by the airport authority, I think a different language can suffice. That doesn't give away everything. That doesn't exempt all of these things. And that is my concern for this bill. I think I agree in the intent of economic development. Yes, yes to that, 100%. But let's word this properly. And, again, transparency is so important. I think especially, that's one of the tenets of inviting businesses, right? It's not about how low we can go, but it's about the rule of law. The fact that a territory, a country stands by the rule of law attracts businesses. And most likely sustainable businesses, long-term businesses. But if we undermine the foundation of economic development, if we undermine the rule of law, we are undermining the sustainability of our island. And so I do beseech my colleagues, let's do better. We could support each other. I see that. But I think this bill needs to be written stronger. Susan Mossy.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, General Lady from Tumuni, you're recognized.
Sutus Masi, Mr. Speaker. I'll try and be brief. I know how late it's getting, but I have to tell you, when it comes to the airport, in the 35th Guam Legislature, I had introduced legislation to actually increase the years of contracts in the 35th. And then I tried to introduce it again. So if there's anyone in here who's been trying to help the airport, I've been one of them. And the bills that I've introduced speak for itself. But there's certain things I will not yield to when it comes to what's in the best interest for our people. No matter what, no matter if someone approaches me from airport outside in the parking lot threatening they're not going to vote for me if I don't take care of this bill and vote for this bill and stop arguing about it. I'm fighting for the people of Guam and for your best interest. Not just them, but yours as well. That was very disheartening. And then I asked, well, what is wrong with asking for procurement? Oh, because we have to buy it from local when we can go off island and buy it. I said, well, don't you care about our local businesses here? No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't care. They don't care. They just want this blank check. because they need to bring investors, they say, investors. Mr. Chair, Guam does a lot to bring investors to Guam. We've got programs that gives tax credits. You know, we attract them because of our location. We're strategically located where we're the U.S. gateway. We can offer so many things on this island to investors. Why would they want to invest in GAA? Is GAA up to par with their escalators? Is GAA up to par with their gates? Has it been fixed? Have they received any of the money from the insurance companies to make these repairs to our airport? It's been a while since Marwa. And I don't know, I've been going to the airport and traveling, and I still see those escalators are down. And there was a big problem with flooding as well, too. I think we need to fix our airport. If we had the OPA public auditor here in this hall, hearing the conversation, what do you think he's going to say? What amendments that good senator from Jotnya would he be voting on? Accountability, transparency, fiscal responsibility. That's what he all stands for. And you know, if he was in here today, you know where he would be voting. And we're all talking about how well the public auditor is doing, looking for corruption, being able to account for the people's money, having to turn in certain individuals who's lost the people's trust to the Attorney General's office to investigate. We cannot afford to make a mistake. We can't afford to lose out like we did YTK, the ITC building. And for years, we were being undercut by fiber optic cables, for years. We have a responsibility to the people of Guam. And right now, it's not looking that way. And I don't care what time it is, I'll stand up here and continue to fight for the people, continue to fight for what's theirs, and in their investment. Because it's not just for them, it's for their future, their children, their grandchildren, in which it will affect them if there's nobody here crossing the T's and dotting the I's. Balance, Mr. Speaker. Hoping there would be some kind of balance in this bill, but none. Nobody wants to hear it. Hey, everything that comes in front of me, just kill it, kill it, kill it. Bring investors to this island. The importance of it. You need to fix your airport first. And all the issues that are coming up there. Not coming up, that have been sitting there for years. You know, this is like deja vu at the first session that we had too, allowing a blank check with no responsibility in ensuring that it's done correctly, that it's done fairly, and that the laws that we put in place to protect our island and our people are instilled in contracts to ensure that our economy grows along with our people who invest their time, their resources into their home. Bring in investors. We have opportunities to bring investors in, but not at the detriment of our people. We are selling ourselves short here. We did that for fiber optic cables for years. We sold ourselves short. It's very unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. We couldn't find a balance. One of the other speakers mentioned, what about the other agencies that come in front of us that want the same thing? We're going to set precedents here. We allow them not to have to worry about procurement, to go through procurement. They're going to be coming here, hey, we need that same opportunity. We need to grow our agency because we have to provide the services needed for this island. That's going to be the excuse. You opened Pandora's box. It's obvious, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is going to pass. But this isn't something people in the hallway in the lobby should jump up and shout for joy about. There was no real win here, Mr. Speaker. There was not a win. Definitely, the people of Guam did not win tonight if this bill, which I predict is going to pass. I really wish collaboration was put at the forefront to at least incorporate some safety mechanisms, but no, because people of Guam doesn't matter. They don't matter. Let's just get this bill through and see what happens. Well, I tell you one thing. Regardless in how long I'm standing here, I'm going to keep an eye on those contracts that were already discussed. And you and I both know when it comes to procurement, you're not supposed to start negotiate with people until things go out, the RFP goes out. They're already breaking procurement. No wonder they want this bill through. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, any other senator wishing to speak on the bill? On the bill? No other senator wants to speak on the bill? Senator Lujan, you can close on the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and my colleagues. Heated? Absolutely. But great dialogue. But you know, I just want to say that, fear-mongering, my gosh. Let me repeat myself. This bill wasn't just put together this legislature or the previous legislature. This goes back almost 10 years to the 27th, 28th Guam Legislature. Again, going back to the previous boards and chairs, like former Governor Frank Blas, that built out the airport. The unfortunate thing is he's not here to see what he has built out. You know, so my colleagues made it sound like we are passing this bill to break all laws. Comparing it to other agencies, well, if they had FAA oversight and must adhere to strict guidelines of FAA regulations, they get tens of millions and hundreds of millions of dollars from. Because that's what they have to do. Everything they do has to adhere with FAA regulation, be it for aeronautical or non-aeronautical uses of the properties. Yes, the airport has its challenges, big time. Be the first one to admit it, and the airport personnel know that. Have they got paid from the insurance? They just got paid, yes. As the flooring going in, the flooring is going in now. Because they're not going to be putting in carpet, they're going to be putting in terrazzo. Terrazzo is a little more costly. But should we have another typhoon and should flooding occur again, they won't have to experience the same damage that they experienced before. In regards to their people movers, their escalators, they have one vendor, Otis. They're looking to change out all their people movers and looking at other companies that may be able to not only put in the equipment, new equipment, but to service it. The unfortunate thing at this point is that we're limited in the companies that can provide those particular equipment and people movers. And that's one of the reasons why I can't, I'll say this, most of us have been here, have been to airports to really poor countries, third world countries. But their airport, yeah, is a lot more advanced than ours. A lot more advanced than ours. And that's one of the reasons why we're giving them the flexibility so they can catch up. So they can catch up. Because we are way behind in regards to our airport concessions and things of that nature, Mr. Speaker. We are way behind our competitors. And that's why we're giving them the flexibility to be competitors. We've built out the airport. We're inviting them to come. But we needed to build it out to be competitive with the rest of the world, the rest of this region. You know, just last week, the airport was in the Philippines. On my way back, I happened to meet with them in Manila. And the good news is, at this point, is we're very close to solidifying with one of the airlines to fly out of Clark and probably Cebu to Guam. We're having to make sure that their rates will be competitive to other destinations that are like ours, between 2 or 3 hours away. Because if their fares are exorbitant, you won't get that traffic. These are the things that we have to compete against, Mr. Speaker. We're competing against the world. We're competing against countries that have their own airlines. They have their own airlines. We're competing against countries that negotiate their own open skies. We're not. We have a lot of restrictions. And those restrictions, in a sense, hurt us as well. So how do we become competitive? Our competitive nature is that we are America and Asia. But being America and Asia and what we have in the books right now in regards to business opportunities is way out of line. They don't want to do business. A previous speaker said they're going to keep a close eye on procurement. I hope we will. I hope you'll show up to our oversight hearing as well. Because that's exactly what we want to do with GIAA, is have close eyes and scrutiny and scrutinize everything that they do. And again, you've seen the challenges of what Omar had brought to the world. You've seen the challenges when you're still feeling the residual effects of COVID in Guam. All our other competitors, all our other destination competitors have recovered. We have not. All our other competitors are building hotels, adding more rooms. Mr. Speaker, we're just the opposite. Our hotel owners here are selling. Are selling. And they've had the opportunity. Some folks have been here, had the opportunity to fix this. They haven't. And then you have something that can fix it, that it can help alleviate and make business, have it go on, be a little more business friendly. It's corrupt. It's pre-selling. Who's this for? Well, you know, I hope when this bill passes, we'll find out real soon who it's for. Because I certainly hope that we get bidders. I certainly hope so. Because if not, this is for nothing. I would hope that we get bites. I would hope that we get local, multinational companies, because they're already inquiring. And you know why they're inquiring? Because we're putting the word out. We're putting the word out there. Is that so bad? Is that so bad that you're wanting to try to get an edge over your competition? Because everywhere again has recovered from COVID. We haven't. We're getting our butts kicked big time by our competitors. Let's for once, have a sweetheart deal for the people of Guam. And yes, I want a sweetheart deal for our folks. Absolutely. And we'll soon see who bids, because they're going to have a public hearing, and they're going to come to us for an oversight, and we'll call them in as often as needed. So with that being said, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleagues again for the debate tonight. It was heated, but that's what this body is for. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Would you like to remind to remove it?
Mr. Speaker, I move to put, what's my bill number? 67-38 CR, the voting file.
Okay, on the motion to move bill number 67-38 COR as amended by the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, Foreign and Federal Affairs to the third reading. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered. Next bill, bill number 6-38, COR, Senator San Augustine.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, ma'am.
notwithstanding the rules, I would make a motion that we recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow. It's 9:30 p.m. This next bill intends to take land out of the Tomorrowland Trust Commission. I don't believe that we should do that in the middle of the night without them being able to watch. They were not able to testify because they were not able to have a meeting before the public hearing on this bill. So I think it would be prudent for us to just do this in the daylight, be transparent about it.
And that isn't the intent, ma'am. We're just gonna go ahead and put it in the second reading, open it up, and then go into recess before any discussion, okay? Senator San Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to place Bill 6-38 into the third reading. I don't like to discuss the bill, but due to the time of the night, evening, Bill 6-38, that we move to recess to tomorrow morning, and then I'll introduce the whole, give my opening statement on the bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, there is a motion. First off, I'm going to go ahead and accept that we, okay, Bill 6-38, so that you can discuss it tomorrow morning. Okay, you move that in. All right, and then tomorrow morning, begin at 8:30. 9 o'clock? 9 o'clock then. Okay? Recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning.